So, what would Japan actually look like with its first female prime minister? Today, we're going to dive deep into the potential administration of Sanaya Takaichi. She's a major political figure, and her leadership could signal a huge shift for the country's future. Let's get into the vision and the strategy that could really define a whole new chapter for Japan. Right off the bat, the banner for Takaichi government would be change without fear. I mean, that is a bold statement, right? It's basically signaling a clean break from the status quo and a plan to act decisively, right from day one. But this isn't just about symbolism. Make no mistake. A Takaichi administration would come in with a very clear, very assertive vision. And it's all anchored in two key areas: getting the economy roaring again and beefing up national security.
So the key takeaway here is that this isn't just a random collection of policies. No, it's a carefully built plan resting on four main pillars. You've got the economy and security, sure, but also a return to more conservative principles, and, this is the really clever part, a strategy to bring the often divided Liberal Democratic Party back together. Let's break it all down.
Okay, first up, the economy. And right away, we'd see a huge change in direction. A Takaichi administration would mean a decisive break from that austerity mindset. The one that's really dominated Japan's finance ministry for years and years. The core idea here is something called responsible fiscal expansion. Now, hold on. This doesn't mean just printing money and spending like there's no tomorrow. Not at all. It's all about making smart, targeted investments in sectors with huge growth potential. We're talking semiconductors, AI, and defense, to really boost Japan's economy for the long haul. And this slide really lays out the difference perfectly. For so long, the focus was all on tightening the belt, which usually just meant cutting back on public spending. The new approach argues that if you invest strategically, you can actually boost the supply side of the economy without triggering crazy inflation. And you know what? Major players like the IMF and the OECD are now starting to get on board with this kind of thinking. And it seems this approach would really hit home with the business community. As economic commentator Mariko Mabuchi puts it, corporate leaders are looking for exactly this kind of clarity. That sense of confidence has been missing, and a move like this would be a really powerful signal that things are about to change. All right, on to the second major pillar, security. The Takaichi platform is packed with ambitious reforms, stuff that's been talked about for years but always got blocked by tricky coalition politics. So, what would have to change to make it happen? Well, the key would be a whole new political coalition. The LDP would team up with Nippon Ishin no Kai, swapping out the more centrist Komeito party. The thing is, the LDP and Ishin share a very similar national vision, especially on security, which would give the government the political muscle it needs to finally push these big changes through. And there are two huge reforms on the table. First, creating a central national intelligence agency by 2026 to make sure all the intel is in one place. And second, getting rid of the 5 categories rule. This is a post-war regulation that has severely limited Japan's ability to export defense equipment. Abolishing it would be a game changer, opening the door for Japan to join major international defense projects. That's a massive policy shift. And wow, this quote from journalist Genshiro Sagusa just hits the nail on the head. He argues that these are steps that are finally normal for a sovereign nation. For decades, Japan has been held back by these self-imposed rules. This signals a big shift towards a more pragmatic, assertive realism on the world stage. Okay, so you've got this big vision, but a vision is nothing without the right people to make it happen, right? And a potential Takaichi cabinet would be a really fascinating, calculated mix of competence, loyalty to her vision, and some savvy political reconciliation. Now, this is where the political chess really comes into play. You'd see close allies like Satsuki Katayama and Kimio Noda in key jobs, overseeing things like fiscal reform and economic security. But then you'd also see former rivals like Toshimitsu Motegi brought into the fold to keep the party unified. It's a strategy of both reward and reconciliation, all designed to bring a sometimes fractured LDP together. But looking at this proposed cabinet, one number immediately jumps out. Just 2. There would be only 2 women appointed to top posts: Finance Minister Katayama and Economic Security Minister Onoda. So, as you can imagine, this would immediately get some blowback from the media. People would be asking, wait a minute, is this a step backward for female representation? Especially coming from Japan's first ever female prime minister? But Takaichi's defense would be pretty direct.
She'd say her picks were based on competence, on finding the absolute best people for the job. The goal wasn't symbolism, it was building a team that she would call fit for purpose. So what does this all mean for Japan's future? Well, a Takaichi administration would have a very narrow but absolutely critical window of opportunity to fundamentally reshape the country's entire policy landscape.
And this timeline, wow, it really shows you just how much pressure there'd be. With a new budget needed almost immediately and huge new laws on the docket for 2026, the clock would be ticking loud. The next LDP leadership election is slated for 2027, which gives her basically 2 years to get things done and show some real results. At the end of the day, the goal here is really twofold. On one hand, it's about steering Japan toward real, sustainable growth and making it more secure. But on a political level, it's also about proving that decisive, powerful leadership and female leadership are not mutually exclusive, that they absolutely can and do go hand in hand. And as Mariko Mabuchi concludes, this whole vision really does offer a lot of hope. The core belief driving this kind of government would be that Japan can grow again, powered by a fresh mix of smart investment and a real renewal of national self-confidence. It's a powerful mix of ambition and realism, for sure. But the big question we're all left with is this: can this new blend of reform and realism actually deliver on its promise and truly reshape Japan's future?